Not to go on all fours, that is the law. Are we not men? Picture this. You're trapped in a pitch-black, suffocating ravine. All around you, misshapen figures are chanting those exact, bizarre words in unison. It's a terrifying, hypnotic litany, and it instantly plunges us into the unsettling mystery of an uncharted Pacific island. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to dive deep into a profoundly disturbing survival story.
We're breaking down the island of Dr. Moreau, a psychological descent. Our guide through this absolute nightmare is a guy named Edward Prendick. He's an educated gentleman, but his fight for survival is about to quickly morph into a desperate, terrifying struggle for his own sanity. Over the next few minutes, we're going to trace his impending descent into extreme paranoia, exploring a place where the lines between man and beast don't just blur, they're completely ripped apart.
Section 1. Shipwreck and Strange Rescuers.
Now, to really understand Prendick's fragile state of mind, we have to look at the absolute gauntlet he goes through just to get to this island. I mean, the physical and mental toll here is staggering. He starts out surviving a catastrophic shipwreck on day 1. By day 7, he's stranded in a tiny dinghy where starvation and dehydration push his two companions into a literal fight to the death over drawing lots for cannibalism. They both end up falling overboard. Fast forward to day 9, and he finally gets rescued by a passing ship, only to be violently thrown off and cast adrift again by its drunken captain on day 12. Finally, he's rescued a second time and towed to Noble's Isle. So before the guy even sets foot on solid ground, he is traumatized, starving, and emotionally completely shattered.
But here's the thing. His supposed rescue doesn't bring any comfort at all. His rescuers are incredibly strange. They're heavily swathed in white fabric, looking almost like bandages. When they move, it's with these clumsy, disjointed limbs, almost like their joints were put together wrong. They have these heavy, chinless, protruding faces. And the real kicker? At night, Prendick spots one of them and sees these luminous, pale green eyes shining in the pitch black. It is deeply uncanny. It's our first real clue that something is fundamentally biologically wrong with these so-called men.
Section 2. The House of Pain.
Prendick goes from feeling like a lucky castaway to a suspicious prisoner the moment he's locked out of the island's main stone enclosure. And suddenly it clicks. He remembers exactly where he knows the name of the man running this bizarre outpost, Dr. Moreau. Moreau was a brilliant but incredibly notorious physiologist. A decade ago, he was essentially chased out of London after a journalist exposed his gruesome, merciless vivisection experiments on live animals. This completely changes the stakes. Prendick realizes with horror that he's trapped on an isolated rock with a disgraced, masterful butcher. And right on cue, the noises begin. He starts hearing the agonizing, relentless cries of a puma being actively operated on by Moreau. Prendick actually describes it as sounding as if all the pain in the world had suddenly found a voice. It's this piercing auditory horror that literally vibrates through the walls. The sheer emotional weight of that constant suffering just shatters his already frayed nerves. He completely snaps, bolts from the compound, and escapes blindly into the jungle.
Section 3. Horrors of the Jungle.
But the jungle? Yeah, it offers absolutely zero sanctuary. Pushing through the dense brush, Prendick comes face to face with straight-up nightmare fuel. First, he sees a copper-colored man down on all fours, lapping up water from a stream exactly like a wild animal. Then, he stumbles on this trio of naked creatures doing a rhythmic chant. They're human in shape, sure, but they have this unmistakable, nauseating resemblance to pigs. Later, he spots a pink creature that looks like some horrific mix between a flayed child and a sloth. And to top it all off, he finds a dead rabbit with its head violently torn off. The atmosphere of psychological terror is suffocating at this point. You have to wonder, what on earth is happening in this place? The terror reaches a total boiling point when he finally creeps back to the compound. He hears something from Moreau's locked laboratory that stops him in his tracks, distinct human gasps of anguish. He forces the door open, and what does he see? A blood-covered Dr. Moreau standing over a mutilated, bandaged form. Prendick's mind goes into overdrive, and he makes a massive, terrifying leap in logic. He completely convinces himself that Moreau is ruthlessly mutilating humans to turn them into deformed animals. And naturally, he gets incredibly paranoid that he's the next human in line for the scalpel. So he flees again, literally running for his life.
Section 4. The Sayer of the Law.
Desperate and out of options, Prendick seeks refuge deep in a claustrophobic, awful-smelling volcanic ravine. That's where he runs into a gray, hairy creature who calls himself the Sayer of the Law.
This creature actually forces Prendick to join a hypnotic litany in the dark. His is the house of pain. His is the hand that makes. His is the hand that wounds. This gives us a chilling look at how Moreau maintains control. He hasn't just caged these creatures, he's deified himself in their minds. He controls his nightmarish creations through the constant looming threat of excruciating godlike punishment.
The specific rules of this law are fascinating. Listen to this. Not to go on all fours, not to suck up drink, not to eat flesh or fish, not to claw the bark of trees, not to chase other men. It's an insane list of prohibitions, and they are all aimed entirely at suppressing basic animal instincts. It proves just how fragile the illusion of civilization really is for these islanders. They are desperately chanting these rules to convince themselves they're men, all while their own biology is constantly tugging them back toward the beast.
Section 5. The Twisted Truth Revealed.
The tension completely explodes when Moreau tracks Prendick down to the beach. Prendick wades waist-deep into shark-infested waters, reaching the absolute peak of his despair. When Moreau asks him what he's doing, Prendick screams back, "I am going to drown myself, because that is better than being tortured by you." He would legitimately rather be torn apart by Pacific sharks than strapped to Moreau's operating table. He even tries to start a rebellion, shouting to the beast folk watching from the trees that Moreau is nothing but a regular man.
But this is the exact moment where Moreau stops him cold and drops the massive paradigm shift of the story. Up until now, Prendick's paranoia made him absolutely sure Moreau was taking humans and carving them into animals. But the truth is the exact opposite. Moreau is degrading men into beasts. He is taking actual animals, pumas, bears, swine, and forcefully, surgically molding their bodies and brains to turn them into humans. Those gasps Prendick heard earlier, that wasn't a human victim. It was a wild animal being carved into a human shape. Mind-blowing, right? To make sure the creatures don't understand, Moreau shouts to Prendick in Latin. He explains his brutal, bloody work with 3 incredibly chilling words: a humanizing process. It's spoken with this cold, total scientific detachment. He genuinely sees the agony he inflicts as nothing more than a mechanical stepping stone. To Moreau, the relentless, bone-chilling pain of that puma is simply the cost of doing business. It's the price of unfettered scientific discovery.
And that brings us to the ultimate ethical dilemma of this explainer. What truly separates humanity from the animal kingdom? And is unfettered science, completely devoid of empathy, the actual monster here? Does simply walking on 2 legs and reciting a chant make us human? Or is it the compassion that Dr. Moreau so clearly lacks? It's a haunting question to leave you with, and it definitely makes you wonder how Prendick is possibly going to survive living among these fragile, tortured creations now that he knows the truth. Thanks so much for exploring this dark island with me today. See you next time.